Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and I'm joined by Katie from Cutscenes and Left Behind Game Club. We're here to talk about the Pathless. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to, give Katie some time to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm back. You can't keep me away. You know what? I feel like I've come on here and plugged all the things so many times. I'll keep it nice and quick. Cutscenes, video game movie podcast. We talk about, video game, movie, or TV related things. So the last season that we did was Last of Us focused. We literally did an episode by episode podcast episode and gave our opinions and our takes and our likes and our dislikes, and that was a lot of fun. And then other seasons have been random movies, TV shows, the Sonic movie, the old Super Mario Brothers. We may have to do the new Super Mario Brothers, apparently, since it's out. But yeah, and then Left Behind Game Club is a book club style podcast where each episode centers on a different video game, kind of like this podcast. But yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's fun. It's informative. It's not too serious. We have a good time. And both of those podcasts are on wherever you can find your podcasts, basically. Whatever your favorite podcast player is, I'm sure they are probably on there.
Awesome. Yeah. As Katie mentioned also, she's been on the show many a time. I think the last time she was on, we talked about Horizon Forbidden West. But we've also talked a lot about other varieties of games, including one from the studio that we'll be talking about today. So, yeah, I guess with that, we can get into the Pathless. Would you want to grab that description for us?
Sure. The Pathless is a mythic adventure of an archer and an eagle in a vast forest. Explore an open world and travel to a mystical island to dispel a curse of darkness that grips the world. Together with your eagle companion, discover the history of the island and fight epic battles to restore light to the land.
Awesome. And then this was developed by Giant Squid, who is known for making Abzu, which was actually the first game Katie and I podcasted about a couple years ago on. So fun to kind of come full circle with the next entry from Giant Squid. All right. So from here, what we wanted to do was give a little bit of non-spoiler thoughts about the game itself, to give you an idea of maybe what the game's like. Is this something you'd want to check out or not, without getting into any, too spoilery of stuff. So, yeah, we'll start with that. I guess first thought I had on this is I really liked kind of the traveling system, I guess, in this game, and how you'd build up speed. So kind of the way this would work is you could dash, and then there were all these kind of hovering like cubes, essentially, and you'd shoot them with your arrow and it would help you gain speed. And so if you like shot a bunch in a row, you'd just like shoot through the map really fast. And I thought that was super cool. I'd never played a game that was that way, and it was really fun. I think it made traversal more fun when, like, I don't know, that could have gotten pretty stale, but I felt like that mechanic made it pretty engaging.
Yeah, I agree. I did not know how they were going to implement the whole archery mechanic, which ended up being it felt more rhythm based, really, than it did like aiming, which is good while you're trying to move as quickly as possible. So if they made it very difficult where you have to aim at each one, like, I don't think it would feel as good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely, I've never quite played a game like that where you're just timing out these hits and kind of looking for the next almost like a little gemmy thing that's floating around. And when you shoot it, it kind of gives you a little burst of speed. And then the way they kind of give you additional things to help you speed up as the game gets further along, it just felt good. Like, I thought they implemented that really, really well.
Yeah, totally. I feel like for making especially in a game that's like this, where like they're like small open worlds, I guess, essentially, like it has sort of a level system. But in open world games, in my experience, like a lot of times travel can get really arduous and you're like, please just give me fast travel. I hate this. And you can get kind of over it. And I feel like this was more like, obviously a different mechanic, but like Spider-Man PS4 or whatever, where traveling was fun. you didn't fast travel in that game because doing the travel was enjoyable. Here, you didn't have a choice, but they made it fun. So I feel like gotta give them points for that. Like I think this was a core piece of the game that they really cared about, and they really nailed it.
And then like even little things like as you're running along, if you cross paths with like a tiny little animal, like you'll see like I want to say rabbits and there's like deer and stuff. And if you go by them, they'll kind of start to run along with you. That was a neat little thing that I was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. And someone was like, wouldn't it be cool if you could run along with animals? And I'm like, yes, that would be cool. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, me too. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. I guess my next sort of non-spoiler thought I had was I like the kind of puzzles that are in this game. A lot of them were like you would need to sort of logic your way through a puzzle of like, okay, I need, this pillar to get hit by something that will open up this other thing, and then I'll be able to do this. And I don't know, whatever style of puzzle this would be called, this is my kind of puzzle. Like, I thought these were fun, and I felt like they got harder as the levels went on some, but they never got so complicated that I like needed to look them up. There was one I needed to look up at one point, but I was doing what the puzzle wanted. I was just doing it wrong. So, but I was like, I think I know what I'm doing, but I just was doing something wrong. So I thought that was cool. I thought these puzzles kept me engaged for sure.
So I liked the puzzles. I also liked that they were basically there are like contained little puzzle areas sprinkled around, and that it's like, oh, you go to this one little place, and within this place there is a little puzzle. Like, it's not, you don't have to get an item from some other place. Like, no, everything that you need is in this one place. You just have to figure it out. And I liked that a lot. I also liked that you didn't actually have to do every puzzle. Because you have to do the puzzles in order to get these little like icon things that you can then use to like light up these towers. But there are more puzzles than are needed for how many icons you need. So there were a couple puzzles that I was kind of stumped on, but I didn't actually need to do it. If you want to be like completionist about it, you can do every puzzle and try and get that trophy. But I liked that I didn't have to, because I didn't feel the need for this game to be completionist about it. I didn't feel like I had to do everything. I would try and do most of them, but if I was stumped on one, I was like, that's okay. I'll leave. There's other ones that I can do. So kind of that like options within it. And these puzzles aren't optional puzzles. It's not like, oh, this puzzle is optional. They're kind of all optional. But you do have to do a certain number of them in each area. I like the setup that has.
Yeah, I appreciated that too, that there wasn't like, this is the puzzle that unlocks the next level or something. Like, yeah, that you had that freedom. I agree. I thought that was really nice. My last thing I had for this is, for non-spoilers, is the music in this is great.
Yes.
Austin Wintory did the soundtrack. He did it for Abzu also, so I was expecting good music coming in and was not disappointed. It was really great. I really enjoyed that. Totally nailed it.
It does the same thing that a lot of Austin Wintory scored games do, including Abzu, that the music shifts subtly. Like, you're going from one area to the next area, and it just kind of morphs into that one. It's just cool. It just sounds good. Like with Abzu, without the music, it's not the same game. Like, it's not as enjoyable as it is with the music. Austin Wintory just crushes it all the time.
Totally. Yeah, I think this game would be fine if you, like, I don't know, turned the music off and listened to a podcast or something like that for some reason. It would be like, oh, this was cool, but the music elevates it. You, like, need it. No one should skip out on that. Yeah. Cool. Those were a couple thoughts I had. Did you have other kind of thoughts, non-spoiler, that you wanted to get into?
So what you said, like I said, I agree with basically all your points. Those are all the things that I really like about this game. I do have critiques, though.
Yeah.
I think it's too long. I think 2 hours could have been shaved off, and I wouldn't have lost much out of the experience. I feel like there just isn't enough iteration on what you're doing for the game to be that length. The length of the game is fine, but if it's going to be that long, I feel like things need to iterate a bit more and change a little bit more where it keeps my interest. Because there were certain times where I was like, oh, I'm in the new area. Is it just me, or did the first 3 areas feel very similar?
I felt the same way. I thought the first 3 were pretty similar too.
Right? I was like, oh, I'm in a new area. I was like, oh, it looks a lot like the last area. Okay. And they're telling like slightly different stories with the you can pick up like little lore items that tell you a little bit about the world, and like the themes would be slightly different, but not a lot different. I just and then you have an eagle companion who is lovely. I love that eagle so much. And then the first time that you're roaming around the world, and there's a thing that happens that kind of interrupts you, that we'll get into. I mean, we're going to get into spoilers pretty soon, I guess. I'll declare this as light spoilers, starting now. There's like a red kind of orby, shadowy thing that kind of, if you end up within it, the boss or the enemy of that area kind of starts stalking you, and your eagle gets like thrown around, and you have to like stealthily crawl back to it to get it. And then that being the same each time, basically every time I got to the new area, I was like, oh, they're going to make me do the thing where now I have to crawl around and get my eagle back, but it's basically the same. That bothered me so, like, more than it should bother me, but it, like, as soon as it started happening, I was like, oh, like, I dreaded it each time because it took a lot of time. It wasn't any different. It wasn't difficult. It just took time. And then brushing, there's like, I forget what it's called, like a corruption kind of haze is on your eagle, and you have to like brush it off with the, what's the thing in the middle called? On the DualSense.
DualSense, yeah.
The touchpad. You have to use the touchpad to kind of like brush it off. The first time it was cool. The second time I was like, I got to brush off all the stuff again. I don't know. There was a few things that didn't change. And I was like, I need this to change a little bit or to add something to it. So honestly, that is my main issue with the game, is just that there's a couple core things that don't iterate at all, that became tedious to go through. And then there's other things that I loved. Like overall, I like this game. I like that I played it. If they made a sequel, I would play it. But there are certain things that are just like little sticking points that bothered me as I was playing it.
Yeah. I didn't like the wiping the eagle down thing either. I know
it took too long.
Yeah, it did. And you'd miss like one spot on one wing, and then you have to go all the way back to the other side. And yeah, I agree. When you'd get into those, I don't know, the red vision thing before that, you know, the first time or two I got caught, and so then you have to wipe your eagle down and all of that. And then after that, I was like, I hate wiping the eagle down. I don't want to get caught. And so I'd work really hard to do the stealthy part right, because I didn't want to deal with wiping down the eagle. And it's like, I don't think that should be the goal. Like,
no.
So I agree. I did get a little annoyed by that as I went. I was like, I don't want to do this. Can we just skip this? Like, maybe if they would have only used that when like the God's Lair showed up, like if you did it like once or twice,
yes,
that could have been cool. But doing it every level, I agree. I was like, I'm just annoyed.
Having that mandatory encounter at least once per world, I was like, come on. And then it can happen again, like if you get too close to it. And I avoided that thing like the plague. I was like, no, I'm not doing it more than I have to. Like, this is the most annoying thing. So I'd like run from that red orb, because it kind of floats around. Like, it kind of switches spots now and then, and it kind of grows. And I'm like, get away from me. It's like a storm. It's kind of like a traveling storm. And I'm like, no, please God, no.
Yep. Yeah, after getting caught in it more than once on a level, I was like, all right, I'm going the long way. Like, I don't want to be in this. Totally. I agree there for sure. Cool. I think that sounds like that kind of covers our sort of initial thoughts. So we can hop into our spoiler section. Full spoilers from here. So yeah, if you don't want any spoilers of this, hop off now. But spoilers are coming from here. So
Yeah. If you like a beautiful world with wonderful music, that's kind of all vibes. And you like nice fast-paced traversal, and absolutely play this game. Come on back, have a listen.
yep. And I think lengthwise, what it was maybe like 6-ish hours. Is that right?
Yeah, probably about like 6 to 8,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, something like that. So I guess with your thought of if you could shave 2 hours, if it was more like in the 4 to 6 range instead, that would probably be the sweet spot.
Yeah, around 5, give or take.
Yeah. Cool. No, I think that's good to have in mind for folks. So the game begins with sort of a tutorial level where you play this hunter and she needs to help the eagle mother, which is this giant eagle who is, I think, passed out kind of in the center of our level with corruption on it. And we get given a spirit mask early on, and the spirit mask will show us the spirit realm. And within that, when you have the spirit mask on, you can see little like red glowy areas to let you know that's where like a corruption area is. This is where like one of our puzzles are, where we could get one of our, I guess, light stones to be able to move towards clearing the corruption on that level.
And that was a good little tool that they gave you to kind of, because it is like these big, like each area is pretty big. So if you're just wandering around trying to stumble onto these little puzzle areas, it could get frustrating. So they gave you something that just kind of indicates these little, like red hot zones that you can go to. It's like, oh, there's something over there, whether a puzzle or like a chest with that would give you you'd get different things that would kind of fill this meter, and eventually it would either make you faster. I don't recall. But it would kind of give you at least a bit of a direction. Ironically, for a game called The Pathless, but it would give you like a little bit, just like little hints of like, over there's something cool. Go see that.
Yeah, right. And I guess with that, I hadn't really thought about that, but they really don't give you a path in general. Because like you don't have a map, right? There's not a map. There's not a mini map. Like instead, it's you just turning on your spirit vision. Okay, I see red over there. I'll go that way. And then like as you're going, you like turn it back on to like check again, and you're like, all right, am I going the right way? That kind of thing. So it is really kind of free range. If you weren't using your spirit vision, I feel like you could wander around forever not finding anything.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I did like stumble onto things all the time, but yes, you run the risk of thinking that you're in the right area and that there'll be a puzzle around, and then no, you did everything and you're not progressing. So they just take away that danger of people getting frustrated with one little kind of trigger that you can kind of turn on.
Yep. And in this tutorial, you kind of get they set the stage for what this game basically is, of its sequence. So what you need to do is you gather light stones from doing puzzles, that kind of stuff. And once you gather enough, then you end up, kind of turning a tower on. So in each level, there's 3 big towers, and they're red with their corruption. But once you gather enough light stones, I think most of the towers were like 2 light stones per tower kind of thing. So you'd gather the light stones, you'd go to the tower is no longer corrupted. It changes to another color, yellow or something. And then once you would gather enough light stones that you turn all 3 towers on, they all kind of shoot a beam into the middle, and that kind of signifies moving towards the end of your level. So in the case of this tutorial, you do that, the 3 towers shoot their beam at the eagle, it clears the corruption off of the eagle mother, and then the eagle mother transforms into just like a regular sized eagle who becomes your companion for the rest of the game, who we mentioned at the very beginning. So, that sort of sets your stage. And after getting the Eagle Mother, you go and are able to move on to your first level. The Eagle Mother also tells you about the task she's given you. Is that where this happens?
I believe so. Yeah, that basically there is this force that's like spreading corruption, and that it wants you to clear the corruption, save the world, etc.
Okay, right. And it talks about that each area has like a beast. She refers to the beast. There's like 4 beasts that she calls her children, and each beast kind of rules one of the lands or the levels that we interact with. And so that sort of sets us on our mission is you want to go through the levels, clearing the corruption in that land, and then also clearing the beast who's been corrupted and returning it to being her like spirit children or whatever kind of thing. Good spirits.
I also did not really expect there to be like a singular villain, which there is. I think you meet it pretty early.
Yeah.
I believe, which is called the God Slayer. Who's basically their whole mission seems to be like bringing order. It really reminded me of Star Wars, like so much. I was like, oh, it's the Empire. Got it. Like it's bringing order to the galaxy and everything. And like, no, there has to be a path. There has to be order that everybody follows, which is, like antithetical to the whole premise of the game, which is the pathless, which is to find your own route and, just find your own route and like kind of explore and figure it out on your own. And the God Slayer is like, no, everyone needs a path. Everyone needs order. Everyone needs a goal that I will give to them, more or less.
Yep. Yeah, and the God Slayer is like super powerful. You like have a brief moment where you like try to fight them and they just like knock you off the cliff. Like they're way powerful. And yeah, their pursuit to establish order, they're like, okay, well, if I need to establish order, sure, I'll corrupt everyone to be able to get us order. That's what I have to do, sort of thing. So, and the God Slayer hasn't like achieved total domination yet. There's like something that still needs to happen, but like basically the whole world is under their control. Kind of thing. Yeah. So this leads us to our first level. The first level, the god or boss on this realm is called Cernos, who is an elk. And the area is called Forest Plateau. So that's what this sort of scenery looks like. I guess also with each of the sort of bosses that you get, they have a name and a spirit form that they were, but their corrupted spirit form does not look like that typically. Because like there's a later one that I think was a snake, but it looked like a dragon. So
yeah, and then the bear looked like a lizard. Yeah, and then they were I was like, oh, that was a bear. Got it.
Yeah, so somehow their corruption changes their form too, even though it still is them. But then when like their corruption gets cleared, you see the animal that they actually are, kind of thing. So yeah, Forest Plateau. This one again, I guess sets even more the stage of how this game is played. So you get kind of an idea with that on the tutorial level with Eagle Mother, but now you hop into that here. Again, it does follow the same sort of premise of gather the light stones, and once you gather the light stones, you restore the towers. That triggers your level. And something also you can find while you're here is if you collect enough of something that's not the light stones, something else, your eagle can like fly higher. It gives them like almost like an extra jump ability.
It's basically like a short hike. If anyone has played a short hike, you get more flaps of your wings, basically. Yeah. That kind of boost you up into the air.
Yep. Yeah. And so you do this. Once you get the towers to send its corruption, this light beam goes down and it directs you towards your boss battle. And to get into the boss battle, first you have to chase down the spirit. And so you have this I don't know, your music changed to like this intense chase scene music. You're like using your arrows to go as fast as you can alongside it. They have, I don't know, 2 to 4 targets on each side of them that you have to shoot with your arrow to basically stop the spirit in its tracks. And then you have a boss battle at like the boss battle location.
Chasing down each boss was the one thing that didn't really change at all, but I liked it each time. Because after you've cleared your last tower, they basically shows like a giant red storm in the middle that it's like, oh, it's down there somewhere, go get it. And you can kind of glide in there with the eagle, and then you kind of see it off in the distance running, and then you go, oh, okay. So then you land, and then it was just really dynamic, and it's kind of like most of them like shoot fireballs at you as you're kind of chasing it down. And it was just fast, and it was a good pace, and the music was really good, and it didn't take too long. So yeah, no, each time that part I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, it felt really thrilling getting into it, you know, like just landing, and then you're like, all right, I'm not that far, I gotta catch up, and all of that. Like, I agree. I thought this was one that, although it repeated each time, stayed fun. I really enjoyed that. Then you have your boss battle. Your boss battle kind of has your, I don't know, typical sequence of like, your boss has this certain choreographed set of moves that it does. You need to like hit them in their weakness spot. When you hit them a certain number of times, that ultimately like clears their corruption. And usually there's a couple rounds that it would go through. Like, okay, here's round 1 of the battle, and their fighting sequence is this. Once you pass that, you're on to sequence 2, and so on. And they also set it up where like if you beat one sequence, if you die or whatever, you don't have to go back to the sequence before it. You pick up at the one you left off at. So
yes. Thank God, because that is not the focus of this game. Like, that's not what this game is about. It's not about extremely hard boss battles, you know? Like, it's not like a FromSoft or something where it's like, no, you have to get through this fight each and every time. No, they're like, okay, you did that. We'll put you at the checkpoint. I appreciate when games do that, when it's not, you know, integral to the game that you have to battle through all stages at once.
Yep. I agree. I was glad about that because I guess for this game it's not even really a combat game except in these instances. Like the boss is the only time there's combat at all. Almost all of it instead is like travel and puzzles. Like I would say that's like 80% of the game.
Oh, for sure.
And then maybe the last 20% are these boss battles. So yeah, you do that. Once you win, the boss turns back into its spirit. So this one, Cernos turns into the elk spirit, and then the next level opens up where you can fly up. So it's sort of like you can walk up to like almost like a wind tornado kind of thing where you just walk up to it and it shoots you to the next level of the world. And then you can go explore that one and kind of again kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, and then more puzzles. And we didn't explain the puzzles too much, but most of them are either, you know, moving things to a certain place to either open this gate and then you can shoot through that, or then you can move whatever item through, and you can command your eagle to pick up that item, bring it over here, kind of managing that. And then, or basically using perspective where it's like, oh, you have to shoot through these 3 hoops. But how are you going to do that? Like, where do you have to go? Do you have to move something in order to be able to do it? That kind of thing. Kind of iterations on that basic premise.
Right, yeah. And as the game would go, they could get pretty complicated where it's like, oh, you need to shoot through 7 hoops. But, like, you know, first you shoot, like, your arrow through a hoop, and then it bounces off a shield that goes through 2 more, and then some other thing happens.
Yeah.
They kind of build like that. Like, they ultimately get there. In the beginning, there are a lot of, like, shoot through these 2 hoops, or have your eagle move this shield to this one spot so you can shoot the shield, and then it'll go through these 2 hoops that don't look like they'd naturally go through it, or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't really get sick of the puzzles. I thought that was like the part of the game that iterated pretty well, I thought. It's not doing anything like groundbreaking. Like none of it is anything that I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this ever. But they're all like well executed. You can feel yourself. Sometimes there's, a couple different parts to the puzzle and you're like, oh, okay, I'm making progress. You have a decent idea of what you're supposed to do. Is just figuring out how to do it. But yeah, generally speaking, I like the puzzles a lot. So get to your new area, new set of puzzles. Let's look around, see what's there.
Yeah. I liked that as the game went on. I don't know if this happened for you, but for me, as I went on, my mind formed to the puzzles. And so I'd get there and I'm like, okay, they want me to do this. All right, but there's a step that's missing. Okay, maybe I need to go up the building, and then I'd see another part of the puzzle that you didn't see in the initial courtyard or something like that. And you're like, okay, cool. So I have to do this part. Then I'll be able to do this other thing, and then blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I felt like they kept that pretty satisfying. For me, I'm someone who's kind of either way on puzzles. And so sometimes puzzles can be annoying where I'm like, oh, I just have to do this to get through this. But this game didn't feel that way at all for me. Instead, I was I don't know, just vibing with how to do them and trying to figure out what they wanted.
Yeah, I generally really like puzzles as long as they feel fair, I guess. And this game does a really good job of kind of teaching you the language of its puzzles, right? And how they're formed and the general idea of how you solve them. No, I think it did a really, really good job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so like we said, though, some of this does get kind of samey. So the next levels, the god there's called Sorrow, who is a lizard, and their area is called Redwood Steppe. To be honest, this one is very similar to the one before it.
It looks the same. It's the same place. Nothing changed.
Yeah, I don't think, at least not anything I can remember, particularly changed. I'm sure the scenery was mildly different, but
yes,
it was basically
sure there were differences. Don't add us. I'm sure there was things were changed, but not significantly so.
Yeah. So basically, you just go through the second level, same way as before. Cool. On to level 3. Level 3 is Nemu, who is the snake. Their area is called the Great Plains, so it does change a little bit. I think it's, if I'm remembering right, it's less green here. It might be more tannish.
I think so. That sounds about right.
And again, kind of same sequence. You do the same stuff as before. For me, this was the part I was worried I was going to have to message you and say, hey, I can't beat this game. I got stuck.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this boss fight I got stuck on for a minute and struggled with it through a couple days over the weekend. Trying to do it 5 times in a row. Okay, I can't do it. Leave. All right, I'll come back in a few hours. Kind of thing. And it sucked because I was I understand the sequence. I just couldn't do it for a while.
Was it just the quick timing? Because there is a brief moment where you can shoot your arrow to do some damage, and if you don't do it, it just swats you, swats you down. Was it that? Was it just that? The timing of it?
Yeah, because I think what it was is, so it was the dragon has 5 heads or something, right? And it has a head that swings down, you hop over it, then you can shoot it, then it breathes fire, then it does this. But if you mess up on any of the sequences, all its heads grow back.
Yeah.
And that part, I had a fucking time. Yeah, and I was like, man, if I don't finish this in the next day or two, I'm gonna have to message Katie and say, hey, I got stuck in the middle of the game, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is too early in the game to just watch half of it. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna have to fess up that I suck. But then I went and I sat down, and the first time, bam, got it. And I was like, thank fuck.
Nice.
I was like, oh, this is testing my skills. But I did it, which made me glad. But then also the rest of the game was a breeze after this.
Yeah,
so
I do think
I don't know why this one was the hard one.
I think it was definitely the hardest one. I definitely died a few times. It took me a few tries. As opposed to the other ones. I do like that the actual boss fights, there is variation. They're all the same color. They all deal with fire, which I'm like, I wish we would have mixed that up just a smidge. But like the second world has that is the one you have to do like some cover, not quite stealth, but like you have to run from one cover to the next cover and get to these little I don't know, little pyres thing that you have to like snuff out or light. I'm not sure, but like that had a little bit of variation. And then this one was like, no, you're in a little circle arena and it's in this pit in the middle, and you just kind of have to like run around the pit. And the different attacks from like each different boss, I liked at least that the bosses were different, because if the bosses were like more samey, I would have been like, why? What are we doing here?
Right.
But yeah, I thought Nemu was definitely the hardest one.
Yeah, I agree. I did like that they changed what they were like, because I think the one you were describing in the second one, right? It was like you'd run, it'd shoot like fire between pillars, but you'd have to time it right so that what you were on like didn't sink, but wouldn't like, but also that you wouldn't catch on fire. So
yeah, you had to go like fast but safe.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. And then yeah, for this one, just the full blown, battle. It has a sequence. Okay, its head's gonna do this, then it's gonna do this, then it's gonna shoot fire. So you need to run fast so that you don't get shot with fire. Then you do this. Like, yeah, I thought I like that they were different. They, for having parts of the boss battles feel samey, like the red thing we talked about earlier when you first enter their realm, feeling samey and not good. This was very different, which was cool.
And great music again. Oh, it's just like it just builds. Like it is pumping. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and I think the transition from the chase scene to the boss battle, like all of that's really cool. Like intense chase scene, I chased them down. All right, they're cornered. Let's have this fight. And then the stuff that goes with that, definitely cool. Like, I like that for sure. I wonder if talking about making it smaller, I wonder if they could have just took off like one of the levels, like maybe took one world out, if that would have been enough. Like if it would have been like, okay, cool, this isn't the same.
Or if you want to keep it in, mix it up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that could work too, for sure. I felt like in this area for me, I don't know if we definitely got lore pieces in the other worlds. I guess what you get as lore pieces is you find like dead people journals, basically, scattered kind of throughout. But I felt like in this level, you got kind of deeper or more lore stuff. So you find out a bit more about the Godslayer here. You find out that there was a guy called the Pathfinder, and he was a man who thought that the world was full of chaos, that this was a bad thing, and he wanted to discover like the one true path kind of thing. And if he did this, then people would have like a clear path to salvation. So if I can figure this out, I can save everyone, sort of thought. And as the Pathfinder does this, they discover that the world instead is chaotic. It's not that it seems chaotic, it actually is. And that one true path doesn't exist. So instead his goal becomes, okay, well, I'm going to destroy the world then, so that I can make a world that does have order. And so the Pathfinder then becomes the Godslayer. So we figure out who the Godslayer was before they were the Godslayer.
And also a lot of the dead people that you find, and they're like little journal entries. Some of them were either some of them ended up doing like bad things. Like one of them ended up, I believe, like poisoning like everyone else, because they're like, no, this is what I have to do to help bring order, more or less, or like figure out my path. And then others are like, oh, to simplify, basically like, what's going on with Johnny? He's acting kind of weird. And then, you go to the other body and it's like, well, I had to kill them all. And then you find out what happened. You're like, oh, okay. But yeah, you basically kind of walk. It's very kind of doom and gloom, where all of these different dead people are like, yeah, this is how everything went wrong. It's like, oh, that's terrible.
And I think at the beginning of the game, what I thought was the case at first was you'd find bodies, and it made me think it was like the warriors who came before you, who like I tried to take the Godslayer out. Here's how far I got, and here's what I learned, kind of thing. I don't know if that was true, but it felt that way in the beginning for me. And then as you just see, like, just what the corruption did to everyone, whether they were trying to resist it and died, or they became followers and then also died.
Yeah. There's one area where there's one like kind of puzzle room where you can get to a chest or something, and it's full of traps. Like, you kind of have to navigate your way around without getting hit or setting off these traps, and then you find these people who died by the traps, and they're like, no, if I can just get to whatever the Godslayer is leading me towards, then I will reach a higher level, or I will, things will be good. And then, no, they died and failed. And also just kind of like get a little delusional. Like, everyone's kind of losing their mind a little bit to some degree.
Yeah. I thought that they did a good job with the lore pieces, with the learning the people's, 1 or 2 sentence stories. I thought that was kind of cool.
I thought some of them were really interesting and some of them less so. Like, I got variation in return on getting the lore pieces.
Yeah, I could see that. I feel like especially at the beginning of the game, I didn't feel like all of them hit as well for me. But then later in the game, once I started getting like good ones, I wanted to check everyone that I could find.
Yeah, I definitely got if I saw one, I got it because I'm like, oh, it might be interesting, and some of them really were.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, cool. So that's World 3. Finally on to World 4, which is different. So this one's god is Kumo, the bear, and this is the mountain tundra. So this one is a world just covered in snow. There's and not just snow on the ground, but like snow in the air, like visibility's tough, like all of that. And this one, I'm pretty sure it was the largest of the areas. Like, it was really big, and you could go really high and go really far within it. And one thing that was notable, I thought, of the Notes from the Dead was that this used to be a really beautiful place. This was a green place. It was like the lavish part of their world, like nicer than the green places you've been before this. And that it's been cursed, and that's why it's all snowy now.
Yeah, it definitely felt the largest. That is a thing where as the game goes on, it grows in scale vertically too, because you're getting more eagle flaps, like wing flaps. You can get higher. And speaking of that, I liked some of the trophies. So I played on PlayStation. I assume you did also.
I did, yeah.
Some of the trophies, because I always like peruse through the trophies, see what there is. There were some cool ones. There was one that was like float down a river for however long, and you're just hanging out in one of the rivers, and you just follow it for as long as you can until you get the trophy. And there was a couple where you had to glide for so long, like pretty long. I think it was like a full minute or something.
Oh, wow.
And then another one where you had to slide. And at first I was like, slide. I was like, what do they mean slide? Like, hit enough things in a row so that I'm like moving fast enough? No, like literally slide down a steep like decline, and then I'm like, oh, here's where I can do that, because there are these huge snowy mountains, and I just get as high as I can and just slide, like basically ski down this mountainside, and then finally got those, because I kept on looking around. I was like, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna slide that long? And then I get there and I see how high everything is. I'm like, here it is. It's time.
That's cool. That's awesome. I like that as trophy ideas. I feel like that's way more fun than like some games do for the trophies.
Yeah, instead of like, oh, hit every, whatever item or collect every one of these, like those are fine. But like little tasks where you have to look around and go, how would I do that? Like, that's cool. I always enjoy those.
Yeah. It was wild how high things would get on this level. I remember like going to high points as the eagle and then just traveling like probably like halfway across the map, just gliding all of that way or whatever. I don't know, which was cool. This was definitely my favorite of the levels. Like I thought this one was pretty fun and cool just seeing what your eagles become, how big the area is. That by this point, like you're really flowing with the game. You know what they want. You know what they want in the puzzles, like all of that. So I had fun, especially on this level, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. I'd say otherwise on this level, it does follow your same sequence. You get your towers, boom, all good. So finally, you've cleared all the worlds now and saved the spirit gods. So now you're heading off to face the God Slayer. And so you head to the floating isle that's above Mount Tundra. So you have to like climb into the sky where the God Slayer is, which was cool. I feel like as a setting that was pretty cool to have to go up there. And en route, the God Slayer messes you up again, like the God Slayer's done before. You get your bow destroyed, and the eagle gets corrupted, and he takes the eagle away. So, huge bummer. But the cleansed spirits who you'd freed along the way, they take you up to the top, and they give you a special bow, like I forget what it was called, but some sort of like spirit bow that is strong enough to actually be able to destroy the God Slayer. From here, you have your kind of last boss battle in the game. And so it's you versus the God Slayer and the corrupted eagle. The eagle's also, it's gotten big again, right? It's back like the mother eagle was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought. It's become big again. And you've got this boss battle going through the sequence, all of that stuff. Ultimately, partway through the battle, the hunter absorbs the eagle's corruption, and then is able to ultimately defeat the God Slayer, because it's gotten... It's because it's kind of dual-natured, right? It has the corruption, but the spirit, and that's why it's able to do it. The hunter's powerful enough.
Along the way, you've needed the eagle to defeat each boss, because at the end of it, basically, once you've hit all the targets that you need to hit, you can kind of send the eagle to basically deal like the killing blow, more or less.
Yeah.
So yeah, you kind of have to first defeat your own eagle to like clear the corruption, restore it to its like, its spirit form, and then get it back, and then you can actually fight the God Slayer.
Okay, that's right. It kind of takes away the things so you can actually finish the battle. That's right. So you defeat the God Slayer, and the hunter says that if everyone follows one path, they won't find salvation. It's instead that a pathless world that allows people to find their own way, that's necessary. And ultimately, the God Slayer is destroyed, and the curse ends up leaving the land. You see, like, the Mount Tundra below, the snow all melts, and the world is free again. And you see the hunter kind of succumbing to their injuries on this top platform, and kind of sends the eagle out before they presumably die. And the eagle is going to kind of announce to the world the curse is broken and sort of bring order back to the worlds you've just saved.
I like the general theme of the game, which is basically that, just everyone has to find their own way and figure out their lives kind of for themselves, with help from other people, but like everyone's life is their own, and you got to figure it out, and you can't just follow a set path. I like the general idea of the story. It's not like a really complicated story. It's more, like I said earlier, it's more vibes than it is actual concrete beat by beat story. But no, I like the idea that they have, that the gameplay is kind of intertwined with the theme of the game, which is literally like there's no path. You have to figure it out for yourself and kind of run around and like make your own little path. Like the game does not give you a path. It says, go run around, figure it out for yourself. not, without any help, but it's anytime like the theme of the game and the gameplay are like meshed together like that, I really like it.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job of that as well. It really meshed up that way. Like, I would assume that the game, like, within their story, like, would also say, like, everyone has guides along the way, just like the game gives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a good thing for, like, figuring out your purpose or, whatever your path is, sort of thing. And I think that all fits in that theme. And then also I guess the kind of negative version of that the Godslayer embodies is that, like, if you think you have the path, but you have to do all these destructive things to make it one for everyone, that's really, really bad. Like, that's awful. The Godslayer did not help anyone. He was trying to bring order to the world, and he made it significantly worse. Like,
yeah, basically you don't find anyone, you only find dead people in all your exploration. It didn't give anybody anything constructive, because they're all just everyone's just trying to meet this set path, and it's not working out. So yeah, your villain, your main character, the world, all the lore, everything ties together really well, which I'm like, oh, good. There is a vision for the game, and it's executed really well. Like I said, I wish that some mechanics of the game were a little more iterative as you play on, but it's a well-crafted game, and it's beautiful. It's fun to navigate. I found most of the puzzles really fun. Like, I enjoyed probably 75 to 80% of this game. And also the bosses. Like, I actually enjoyed most of the bosses. The Godslayer, the final boss, too, I liked. I enjoyed, the music, the ambiance, the whole feel of it. There was enough variety there that it kept me interested. Yeah, I mean, they did a really good job overall.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they did a really good job overall. And two, I don't know if you had this wonder, but for me going in, like, I thought this was a really cool follow-up from Abzu. With Abzu, it's, basically a walking sim. It's a little different, but, it basically is that style of game, which is cool. I like that style of game. But to see, I don't know, whatever tools they have in their tool belt to make this game, I thought was very cool. I wouldn't have expected that. To go from, like, the first game was also really experiential in Abzu, but it's not really gameplay focused or anything. It's much more like experience and vibes. And this game carries that part over. But then just adding these different gameplay experiences and things like that, like, I don't know. I'm really excited to see what Giant Squid does next. Like, I'll definitely buy whatever they make.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, they took the thing that they're really good at doing, and they're like, okay, how can we, like, level up, basically? And how could we advance what we're doing, make more complex games, and still, like I said, have that DNA of, like, of vibes, of beautiful environment, of great music, of progressing, through these areas. But I did think about that a lot, that how it compared to Journey and Abzu. They took that thing and they're like, okay, how can we bring it forward into, like, a different kind of game? I'm very curious to see what they do next, because I'm sure they learned a lot of lessons from this game, and what worked well, what they can improve upon. They make beautiful games, so yeah, whenever they announce whatever's next, I'm very curious to see what it is.
Totally. And I guess, too, thinking even, like, your jump from Journey to Abzu, both cool, but, and this will demean Abzu a little more than it should, but, Abzu, it could be, what if Journey was water instead?
Totally. Like, absolutely, yeah. You're not changing a lot. It's a different traversal, but, like, it's not very different.
Right, and both of those are cool games in their own right, and, very worthy of subject of video games as art and all of that stuff. But then to do something like what the Pathless did, I'm like, all right, what are they going to do next? How are they going to do traveling in their game? How are they going to do whatever it is that they decide to do next? Like, I imagine, like what we've been saying, whatever's next is going to have vibes. It's going to have good music. It's going to look great. But what are they going to care about? Like, I want to know. One of the things I was reading, I think, was they made their travel system, like part of how they made that mechanic of like moving faster as you shoot everything and all of that, was that they didn't like fast travel in games. They thought fast travel in games like takes you out of the game. And so they wanted to create their own thing that would keep you in the game the whole time. And so, I don't know. I thought that was interesting of just a thing. So I'm curious what's next. One thing I thought was unusual, I don't know if you have any insight into this, but I thought was odd, was our characters, I don't know if they speak a real language. They don't speak English. It seems like they maybe spoke a made-up language for the game. But your voice actors were Laura Bailey and Troy Baker, which I thought were odd.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Laura Bailey's the hunter and Godslayer's Troy Baker. But I'm like, but why?
And they're just like speaking that like what's the Sims language?
Oh,
like Simish or something?
Yeah, Simlish or something. Is that
something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically doing one of those. And they got Laura Bailey and Troy Baker.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm like, maybe Laura and Bailey and Troy Baker wanted to do it. Like, I don't know.
Troy Baker is based on the podcast that they do together, our friends. So maybe that's how Troy Baker got in. Laura Bailey, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming Troy Baker and Laura Bailey are familiar with each other. I don't know. Maybe it just became a thing like, hey, you want to do this? Sure, I want to do this. And then I'm just going to mutter gibberish into a microphone and it's going to be great and beautiful. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was...
no idea. That's funny.
I thought it was so weird. I was like, am I like playing the game wrong? Why don't I like... am I supposed to switch the language somewhere and I just haven't done it? Like, just because I was like, that's so weird. Like, I hope that they didn't spend their budget on that because they didn't use them.
Yeah.
That's something that I was very confused by. Maybe they're friends. Maybe they're like friends with these people, and so they're like, "Hey, we'll do it, for free or for cheap or something." I don't know.
I assume so. I'm sure it wasn't a long. It's not motion cap. It's just. Yeah. I'm sure it's just getting into a booth, saying the things. It probably took a day, to do. Mm-hmm. So it probably wasn't that much, but it's just funny to me.
Yeah.
That's a great tidbit that I had no idea. I'm like Googling it as we speak.
Yeah. I was very shook when I saw that. I was like, what on earth? Yeah. Those are kind of my main overall thoughts on the game. Do you have other thoughts kind of on the game overall?
I think I pretty much covered it. That it's an enjoyable game. It's all the positives that we've been listing this entire time, mixed with some pain points that I wish could have been ironed out a bit, that keep it from being like for me, like a top tier indie. I'm like, it's just kind of fell a little bit short, and it could have been fixed. I don't know. It's frustrating in some ways, but overall, there are so many positives that kind of override that I think it's a great little game. Yeah. I would agree with that. I feel like this didn't hit my like highs of like my favorite indie games ever that I would recommend to everybody. Instead, it's like it's like a slot below that of this is very good. I would definitely recommend it to certain people. But I wouldn't maybe universally recommend it to everyone the way I would with like a short hike. I'm going to tell everybody to play a short hike because it's 2 hours and it was wonderful. No, that's good. Cool. Yeah. That's what we got. Last thing we got is one piece of listener feedback from one of your good co-hosts, Ludo FM on Twitter, aka Flora, aka co-host of Left Behind Game Club. They wrote in. She wrote in and said, "Love the art design and the mechanics. Music is obviously great. I don't remember much of the story, but I'd like to replay it again with the DualSense adaptive triggers. Underappreciated little gem, in my opinion." Yeah, I think Flora's on point there. And I think I could see that too of this game, the story might be a thing that would fall away in 6 months if you ask either of us about it. We might be like, something about paths. Yeah, paths. There's a mean guy who really wants paths, and there's a main character who's like, no, we don't need paths, and that's the story.
Right, yeah. I feel like that might be what we get. But
Paths are bad and paths are good. That's it.
but I think we would remember, probably especially the mechanics, the vibes, the music. I feel like that's the stuff that when I think back of this down the line, I'll be like, those things were really cool. If you're looking for a game with that, I've got one for you.
Yeah, I feel like it had a little bit of hype when it came out, and then it kind of got forgotten about. So she's right. It's probably underappreciated, but I don't think it's this. It's not gonna hit almost. I don't think it's gonna hit many people's like top list of games that they've ever played. But it is like a little small gem of a game that we'll see how it kind of falls in the story of Giant Squid and where we end up being.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like you said, I remember hearing about it when it came out, and honestly, if it wasn't Giant Squid, I don't know if I would have thought about it again. But because
Probably
it was
not.
Giant Squid, that made me think about it again for sure.
Yeah, Giant Squid and Austin Wittery, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's that cool little game that looks really pretty and looks interesting to play. So yeah, I will play that. But I remember, yeah, it had good reviews, but not it wasn't blowing people away, and it wasn't like building hype. It was like, oh, this is a cool game, and it came out, and then some people played it, and then it got kind of tucked away. But it's definitely, if you haven't played it and you like these type of games, it's definitely worth going back to for sure.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Yeah, I think that covers everything we got. So, again, Katie, thank you for coming on. Really glad we got to do this. Glad we got to talk Giant Squid again. That was cool. I guess to close out, do you want to tell people where to find your podcast and all of that stuff again?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cutscenes, a video game, movie, and TV podcast, and Left Behind Game Club are both, everywhere you can find your podcasts. Cutscenes is on Twitter at cutscenes_pod, also at cutscenes.ca. And Left Behind Game Club is, you can find all things Left Behind Game Club. I feel like Jacob as I say that. At leftbehindgame.club. And they have a lovely Discord channel called leftbehindgame.com/Discord. If you go to the Left Behind website, there is a big button there. It brings you to the Discord. Lots of lovely people in there talking about their favorite games and general gaming news and discounts that people should know about and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Good Discord to be a part of. I like seeing what people are talking about in there for sure. Lots of fun. Yeah, definitely check those out. Again, I'll throw those links in our podcast notes too. Go check their shows out. I was on Tomb Raider, I think the season before The Last of Us one. So if you want to hear me on cutscenes there, or I did Firewatch on Left Behind Game Club during COVID sometime. And
we're talking about cutscenes coming back because cutscenes is seasonal. We're talking about maybe doing like a summer blockbuster because we haven't done like movies in a long time since last season was solely the HBO Last of Us show. So we're like, maybe some like summer blockbuster movies because a lot has come out recently, and then maybe revisit Tomb Raider and check out the reboot with I forget her name, the different actress, but
Alicia Vikander, maybe? Is that it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
If not, it's very similar. And then maybe we'll have you back on, and we'll all contrast and compare and kind of see how what different choices were made. I'm sure it's very different. It would have to be.
Yeah, you'd think so. No, that would be really fun. That would be great. But yeah, their shows are great. Also, the Last of Us season they just did was awesome. The show, of course, was great, but listening to your show was also a great companion to that. Always looked forward to that when that was coming. So yeah, go check those out.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, if you want to check out a backload of our podcast episodes, TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. That's our website. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. We are there. I think there are 5 other episodes with Katie on them. So if you want more of Katie and I talking games, that's available among a bunch of other people who I've talked games with as well, including Jacob and Travis. her co-host. So check those out. If you want to connect on Twitter, I'm at StoryEverPod. If you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can at patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. There, for as little as $1 per month, that will get you monthly access to a bonus episode that we put out each month that's topical in nature. So I ranked the Star Wars movies one time, or talked about most recently I compared Tomb Raider and the Uncharted games. So if that stuff sounds like something you'd want, check those out.
Question. What
yes.
was your lowest rated Star Wars movie? I'm curious. Or lowest ranked Star Wars movie?
I think it was Phantom Menace, because that was really hard.
Okay.
Maybe 8 or 9. I think it might have been 9.
Ooh, yeah.
One of those
really,
two. There are some.
They try hard to have bad ones sometimes.
Yeah, there are some that are pretty painful. I didn't like episode 2 that much either. That was really hard to watch.
Yeah. Honestly, I enjoyed it more on the rewatch only because I knew what to expect, and I more just came in with I'm in here for laughs. I'm in here for ridiculousness, and I'm just gonna chuckle. When I first watched it, I was like, oh dear God, this is kind of painful. But no, this time I rewatched them all with my husband, who hadn't really watched any of the Star Wars movies, and I am a big Star Wars fan. So I'm like, no, you have to watch them. It's Star Wars. They're not all good, but we're gonna have fun.
Right.
And yeah, we had fun through pretty much all of them.
Did you do it?
I had a similar reaction to 9, where he was like, this makes no sense. I'm like, yeah, that's right. No sense.
Yeah, real bad. Did you watch them in chronological order? Did you do that? Them?
Yeah, in order of release. We watched them.
You did release.
So we watched 4 through 6, 1 through 3, 7 through 9. Oddly, his favorite character was Palpatine.
Ooh.
Because as he says, Palpy is just vibes. he's like, look at him. He's happy. He gives no shits. He's just look at that guy. He loves Palpatine for some reason. So when he returned in 9, where I in theaters was like, are you joking? This is ridiculous. He was like, yes, Palpy's back. He loved it. So it's for somebody, I guess.
Oh, that's funny. It's for someone. Now Disney can rest easy knowing
there you
go. Your husband was the person who wanted
someone was happy about Palpatine's return.
Oh, that's really funny. That's awesome. When I'd rewatched them, I did them in chronological, so I did 1 through 9, and did Solo and Rogue One along the way. Which
you know what? We haven't done Solo. I think that's the only one that we didn't watch yet. We have to watch that one.
Okay, nice. That's awesome.
I mean, I've watched it, but I haven't gotten him to watch it yet.
No, I thought that was better on the rewatch.
I watched it once on a plane, so I don't think that I had the best viewing experience in the world. So I need to rewatch it anyway.
That'd be good. That'd be fun. Yeah, that's our episode though. So
anyway,
pod. I love the Star Wars tangent at the end. That was wonderful. That's the episode though. So again, thanks for coming around. And Katie, again, thanks for coming on, and have a great day, everyone.